let's start with Robinson, who we now have learned he wanted to have a gentle surrender when he turned himself in. I want to talk about all this, but let's go ahead and take a look at SOT 9, which is Washington County Sheriff Nate Brooksby.
What did he ask for, can I ask?
He basically for a peaceful, gentle, comfortable transition for him to come out. Again, he knew he was going to get caught. He didn't want a big SWAT team hitting his parents' house or his apartment. He was truly fearful of being shot by law enforcement. So that the conditions were as relaxed and comfortable and almost to the point of, inviting. And if at the end of the day, we accomplish him surrendering peacefully on his own, I'm gonna make some concessions to make that happen.
Look, I want to just say this, and then I'm going to let you guys weigh in and just take it away. But as a former law enforcement officer, I can appreciate that someone who's wanted by police or anything, it's always better when they turn themselves in because, look, you don't have law enforcement resources that are wasted on extensive manhunts. The temperature of everything goes down. Everybody's sort of safer, right? Law enforcement doesn't have to put their lives on the line in apprehending dangerous subjects. But the sheer irony here that this guy was afraid of being shot. And that's what this was all about. I find that to just absolutely be breathtaking. We have lots of legal issues to talk about related to this case, but Mark, what do you make of the circumstances of this surrender?
A gentle surrender? What next? Pink, fuzzy handcuffs? Come here, let me give you a hug. Listen, that rarely happens in cases. Defendants don't dictate the terms. I understand why they did it here, but they almost never do that. Why? Because every second they wait for a surrender, someone can flee the jurisdiction. They're a danger to the community. They took a risk here, and it paid off. But often that's not how defendants are treated.
Dave, as a state's attorney, were you ever involved in negotiating surrenders? And have you ever heard of this kind of let's just say, demand being made of law enforcement when you've got someone accused of a capital murder?
Not for capital murder, but I have heard of terms like defendants will say, I don't want a perp walk in front of the cameras. I want to just turn myself in late at night when no one's around with my lawyer present. I want you to go through my lawyers and not show up at my door at 5:30 in the morning. So yes, that it does happen that they make demands, but it is really emblematic, sadly, of this individual and people like him in this generation, who just sit around and play video games all day and have just become numb to human life because all they do is play Call of Duty and kill people on the screen. And so it's nothing for him to get a rifle on this murder, Charlie Kirk, and then just talk about it in such a casual way afterwards, not showing any remorse whatsoever, actually thinking that, maybe when he's old, he'll talk about it. He would just assume that he would get away with it for so long. And now all of a sudden, he's got consequences. He's wearing the suicide smock. He looks like shell-shocked, and now he's going to be facing the death penalty.
All right. Well, on the legal side of this, we talk a lot in legal circles about conspiracies, and that's a big question here. Is there some conspiracy? And in order for a conspiracy to exist, there's obviously has to be more than one person, and there's got to be some agreement. Okay, that's what a conspiracy is about. We've got accessories before the fact. We talked about this in the context of Adelson, accessories before the fact, accessories after the fact, and we've got these text messages, and we now know there's other chats that are being investigated by law enforcement. And so the question is, legally, was there someone else who A, knew about it, but B, knew about it ahead of time, and who also participated in some way? That's the legal standard in order for someone else to be charged. But let's start by taking a look. We've got these text exchanges. I think we've got an image we can show here. So here's what the text messages say. Tyler Robinson starts by saying, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate says, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson says, "I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home. but I got to grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you. The roommate responds, you weren't the one who did it, right? Robinson says, I am. I'm sorry. To which the roommate responds, I thought they caught the person. What I'm seeing here, and if you guys see it differently, let me know. What I'm seeing here is someone who, if this is to be believed, and if there was nothing else, this is someone who didn't know about it until after it was over. So at least with respect to this, Mark Eiglarsh, I'm not seeing a conspiracy.
Agreed, but I wouldn't trust this. This could be a ruse. This person could know about it. On its face, if this is to be believed, the roommate / alleged lover did not know until after the fact. But I would look through everything, and I'm sure they are. Comb through every email, every text, look at the roommate's phone, look at everything. But there is no duty to report. Someone could know something, but not aid and abet before, during, or after, and it not be a crime. So as abhorrent as it is to know about it, they're under no duty then to proactively assist the government to do anything.
Dave, if you're investigating this case, are you going to be looking to see if anybody else provided him any kind of encouragement? Because look, let's face it, if you encourage someone, even in a small way, to go commit a crime, you are on the hook, just as if you had pulled the trigger yourself. How are you going to go about investigating and looking to see if anybody else was involved?
To do what Mark said, you look through all the messages. You want to see if there's anyone who knew about it in advance. It's not that the roommate actually knew about it afterwards and didn't report. That's not a crime. You question whether he took any affirmative steps to destroy evidence, lied to police, which apparently he did not do. In fact, police have been very complimentary of the lover roommate and his cooperation. But you do want to see if there's anyone else involved, including the roommate. Like, for example, Robinson said that he had his rifle at a pickup place. Did he leave the rifle there to be picked up later, or did someone else put the rifle there? So that's where I would go first. So yeah, there's still a lot more investigating to go.
Well, Mark, in a very strange turn of events, we have an individual who falsely claimed that he shot Charlie Kirk, and he was then arrested for obstruction, and they found, of all things, CSM material on his phone and on his devices. So what do you make of this? And, is this somebody that you're going to say, look, is this person involved? Are they some kind of co-conspirator? Were they a plant just to throw us off? Or is this just some nut job who just happened to be there and this is entirely coincidental?
Clearly, this guy ain't playing with a full deck. In fact, I rarely discuss my work with my family, but as I'm preparing for this podcast last night, I go, guys, you got to hear about this one. That guy who looked like Captain Stubing, who initially we thought was the one who did it, right? I described it. I go, no, they already got the guy. And I described him just like, the captain of the Love Boat. I thought he was the guy. Now we're hearing the backstory. This idiot, to thwart police investigation, said, I'm the one who did it. And so that absolutely detracted from their investigation, at least somewhat. And then the moron allows them, allegedly, access to his phone. And then the child porn was on there. Karma, man. Wow, what a story.
Well, look, once they arrest him, look, they're entitled to go through his effects. Now, they're not entitled necessarily to search his phone, but
he gave consent.
He gave consent.
Allegedly.
They always consent all over themselves. But anyway, this is, by the way, is 71-year-old George Zinn. And speaking of what they found, they say during a preliminary review of the phone, investigators viewed over 20 images of children ranging from 5 to 12 years old.
Yuck.
In various stages of undress and so on and so forth. Things that it feels slimy just talking about it here. But I think the as horrible as this entire tragedy was, it's just one of those things that I think we're going to be doomed to hear conspiracy theories about for all eternity, because there will be people out here who always believe that this guy was some kind of a plant and that he was in on it. I believe, for the record, I can say it right here, right now, I think this is a mere coincidence, and it's something that fortunately, if this guy's guilty, fortunately, the cops got him off the streets now, and he won't be able to hurt any more children, or at least participate in that type of alleged crime. But Dave, I'll give you the last word on this before we move on to Ryan Ruth.
Conspiracy theories are so insidious, and it's just happening on both sides. I see it on my side of the aisle, the Democratic side of the aisle, where I already have talked to friends who should know better, who are already saying, well, there's something that doesn't match up here, that you got this kid who was able to kill Charlie Kirk with one bullet from 200 yards away. He must have been trained by who knows. So we got to stop. This is what leads us to these problems, when you have everyone disbelieving, distrusting just the basic facts in front of their face. And all of a sudden now everything's a conspiracy theory, and it just generates this hatred and mistrust on both sides. That's got to end now.
Well, having grown up around firearms and rifles and hunting, and I can tell you that, 150-yard shot with that rifle, with that kind of optic, it's not the kind of thing you could do maybe if it was your first time ever handling a weapon, but if you have any experience whatsoever, it doesn't take someone who's a trained Navy SEAL or a sniper, and apparently just, anybody with a mere working knowledge of firearms could, unfortunately, could pull that off. But look,
and Phil,
speaking of taking a
Phil,
shot,
if I could just add one thing, and when I said, and I trailed off when I said trained by, because they're saying trained by Trump's people or the CIA. Absolutely ludicrous to think that somehow the Trump administration was involved with killing one of their very best supporters. So that's why I got to say, we got to stop with this stuff, and just hopefully this can be a turning point, pun intended, for us to come together and just end the political violence.